All right, hello. How is everyone doing today? Good? Some energy here? Hopefully we can fill the seats. My name is Uri Pomerantz. I'm the CEO of Twine. We are a digital financial advisor that can help you with all of your life goals, together or alone. Anyone here heard of Twine? Hopefully some folks. We launched at the end of last year, and we've been featured by Apple as App of the Day twice since we launched. Whoop! So really excited. So please come check out our website, twine.com, or talk to me after the talk as well. All right, some tough questions here. How many of you, raise your hand if you want to live a happy life? All right, just wanted to make sure everyone was awake. Easy question. I think happiness is at the core of being human. It just feels like kind of the core of what drives us. But what if I were to tell you that by having happier finances, you can actually live a happier life? And I'll talk to you today about three things. First, I want to tell you a little bit about why living a happier financial life is important for living a happier life overall. Second, I want to talk to you about inertia and why it causes us to stop living a happier life and kind of gets in our way in terms of taking positive action. And third, I want to tell you a couple actions and misconceptions you can use to crush inertia and live a happier financial life overall. So welcome. Let's get started. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about why having happier finances is really important for a happier life. First off, the research all tells us one thing, that having money doesn't necessarily make you happier, but a lack of money could make it much more difficult to be happy. And we kind of know this intuitively as human beings. Look at Maslow's hierarchy here. We really want to get to this self-actualization place up here, which is achieving one's full potential, creative activities, really being the best we can possibly be as a human being. And it's really, really obviously difficult to do that when you're struggling down here at the bottom with basic physiological needs, with safety needs. It's tough to kind of get up there and have your highest needs met as a human being. And economists have also studied this as well. And all the data really points in one direction, is that more income generally results in higher financial stability and generally higher happiness. I'm going to have to talk over that guy. Anyone know who this person is? This is Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist. He did a bunch of research a few decades ago finding that happiness does increase as your income increases, but it basically tops out around $75,000 in a household. And this was many years ago, but basically you do get happier as you have more income, but at a certain point in your life, when you have more, it doesn't necessarily make you happier. And economists years later have reproduced this and had other studies as well, and have found similar things, that basically you tend to get a little bit happier as you have higher income, but at some point more money doesn't buy happiness. And you just really, really important to get past that basic threshold of when you can pay for your bills, get by, not be worried day to day about your finances, but having more money beyond that basic point based on your cost of living doesn't make you happier necessarily. All right, so there actually is some hope in the ray, sort of through this financial cloud here. It's not going to be a fully depressing talk, I promise. And let me tell you about what we can do to actually break out of this. First, the biggest thing that kind of stands in our way is inertia. Inertia is sort of the core of human beings. It's sort of that thing that keeps us stuck in our tracks, that causes us not to take steps forward and to really get stuck. It's basically the path of least resistance. And we can feel this intuitively in our lives. How many of you have seen a billboard from Prudential before? Yeah, it's kind of pretty cheesy, but rings true. We really spend more time picking our emojis than we do thinking about retirement, because it's more fun. We get that dopamine hit. It brings us happiness in the short term, but not necessarily the longer term. And when you think about this type of inertia with bigger decisions, you see some amazing things happening. In the 401k world, if you're not familiar with it, there's been tons of studies around the power of opting in and auto-enrollment. Economists have studied this and had a study where folks were automatically enrolled in a 401k plan, other folks were not. As a result, there were significant impacts. when folks were automatically enrolled and didn't have to go through and submit additional form or sort of click through on the web, 40% increase in long-term savings. So there's a huge, huge impact in just sort of going with our defaults and auto-enrolling, and this is inertia kind of at its core. But also, this gets really interesting when you pair it with bigger macroeconomic trends happening right now as well. So when you take something like human inertia and sort of our lack of ability to take action when we need to, and pair it with basically the death of the defined benefit plan, the death of the pension, we have real problems in America unless we can make a change. In the late 70s, we had about 60% of the country having some sort of pension. So you work till you get to retirement age and you have some benefit coming in. That's basically dead today, less than 5%. And so we really have a huge challenge on our hands. How do we as a country overcome this challenge on a macro level, but also as individuals, as human beings? How do we change our own behavior? So now I'm actually happy to tell you there is a ray of light here. There is hope. There is happiness. I'm going to give you a couple simple things to get started for you to share for yourself, for your clients, for your families, for those that you love, or for your broader Twitterverses and blog and podcast audiences. All right. How many of you have bought cryptocurrency in the last year? I can attest to that too. I was actually looking at the chart this morning. It kind of looked like this amazing exponential hockey stick growth until like end of the year and then back down. But what's driving this is a kind of a preconception that we have to basically win the lottery, or we have to be kind of a mini Warren Buffett, or somehow just really have an amazing investment win in order to make more money and retire comfortably. And the reality is it's just not true. Albert Einstein has this wonderful quote, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, he or she who understands it earns it. He or she who doesn't pays it. Huge quote, not gender adjusted, but gonna help him out there. And I really believe that for a long time, it really was sort of my investments, and that made a big difference in terms of being able to retire comfortably. I'm not retired yet, by the way. But I read a paper a couple years ago, which was really amazing. It talked about two typical families, two 28-year-olds who had a typical 401k, typical U.S. household income, and started saving. And the only difference was one family had this magical crystal ball. And what the crystal ball did was basically, with perfect foresight, every single year, they can invest in the top 25% of ETFs as part of their retirement. And this person saved 3% of their income. So pretty amazing. For 31 years, saving 3%, but with perfect foresight. The other person had a reverse, kind of a negative crystal ball. So for 31 years, they actually invested in the lowest quartile of ETFs. So always kind of really bad luck and sort of really bad investment performance. But the difference was this other household invested 8% of their income versus 3%. So about 5% more. And you think about this, who do you think ended up better over the longer term? Rhetorical question. The reverse crystal ball household ended up significantly better. If you look at this household, over 31 years, ended up with about $300,000 more over that time period, which is basically three times the accumulation during that time. So just want to let that sink in. The power of saving 5% more a year, even if you're getting really, really bad stock choices, the lowest quartile of returns for 31 years, you're still going to end up, over that time period at least, with $300,000 more. So something ingrained in us as human beings just has this concept of savings as being tough and not having the impact we think it has. But really, this is within our control. Another core belief is that it's just really, really tough to retire comfortably, that we have to have some special formula or some amazing financial advisor or get lucky. But the reality is there's a couple simple steps you can take to actually feel comfortable retiring. This guy, Bill Bernstein, if you're familiar with him, wrote a really great essay, 10 minutes, maybe the best 10 minutes you'll ever spend. If you want the link, come talk to me after the talk. But basically, it says in 3 steps, you can beat 90% of all active money managers. 3 steps are invest and save 15% of your income. That's the hard part. So take 15% of your income and do anything with it, put it away, just don't spend it right now. That's the tough one. The second one is basically invest it in 3 diversified funds. You can read the details in this paper, but basically a domestic equities ETF, international equities ETF, and a fixed income fund. And then thirdly, just rebalance it every year. 3 simple steps. The hard part is staring ourselves in the mirror and saying, can we actually take these steps forward to actually make, especially the first one, to make that happen. So how does this story actually change with millennials? Believe it or not, I'm a millennial. I'm an elder millennial, like the Netflix special, if you've seen that. I kind of made the cutoff somehow, but for the younger millennials, how does this story change? Doesn't actually change much. If anything, millennials have even more preconceptions. So we did a recent survey, and 46% of millennials believe they need at least $1,000 to get started to invest. So this sort of mental belief of I have to have $1,000 just to get started, it's pretty insane. And 17% believe they need at least $10,000 to even get started. So these really big beliefs, create a false sense of intimidation. People just aren't getting started, feel like they just don't have enough to even get moving. But there is an opportunity to fix this. We've also found in that survey that millennials are most likely to use a friend group chat for financial advice, and that, believe it or not, people that talk about their finances in general tend to invest. And so the more you talk about it, the more you work with your friends, there's a high correlation with actually getting started and investing for the first time. So people should be talking about this. There should be more discussions. And the more people talk about it, the more people are actually going to take action. So that's really, really important. With all that said, what does it really take not just to have financial stability, but to really thrive financially and to have a happier financial life? For me and for our team, we see this as a journey, and the phrase level up comes to mind. Wherever you are in your journey, there's always an opportunity to level up. However much money you have or don't have, however old you are or young you are, there's always an opportunity to do more and go to that next level. And we've broken it down to 3 really simple levels. The first and potentially the most important one is level 1, which is if you're doing nothing, which I would think the majority of Americans are sort of doing nothing right now, it's going from nothing to something. How do you start and actually build a habit? Even if you're signing up for an app and saving a few dollars a month or a few cents a day, you're really putting yourself in this category of I am doing something, I'm putting something away, I'm saving, I'm investing, I'm taking action, and that will start snowballing on itself, and you're going to start seeing results from that. So kind of feeling mentally like you're in the game, you're taking action. That's probably the most important thing that is important to get started. In our team, we run an app, and a lot of the work we do is sort of getting people off the internet, out of being marketed to, onto actually taking action, opening an account, and getting through inertia. The second thing is, if you're taking some kind of action, you're probably putting it in a short-term savings account. So how do you go from that to actually crossing the chasm to start investing? And so that requires a lot of work, learning about investing, finding out the best place to do that, but really kind of mental work. How do you get comfortable with investing, especially if you're a younger millennial and your parents have been through the financial crisis and saw that? How do you have belief in the long term that investing will be beneficial? So it's trying to channel that inner Albert Einstein, that the 8th wonder of the world, the compound interest there. And lastly, how do you go from individual goals, thinking about yourself, getting by at a basic level, to thinking about others? How do you think about your spouse, your friends, your community? How do you start investing and saving with others or for others? And happiness research suggests if you want to be happy, the quickest way to do that is to give to others, to think of others, to get outside of your own head. We're human beings. We are social animals. We live in packs. So how do you actually do things for others and with others in mind as well? That's sort of the highest level of this work. All right, so we've come full circle. We've talked about a lot today. Thank you very much for coming to this talk. I wanted to recap briefly. First, we talked about happiness overall and how happier financial lives is really important to be happier overall. And then we talked about the biggest challenge in doing that, which is inertia. How do we get past the inertia that's wired into us as human beings to actually start taking action. And third is, what are a few simple steps we can take to actually break through that and start making progress? So you really can live a happier financial life, and that can lead to a happier life overall. Thank you so much for your time today, and hope you have a great rest of FinCon.